Hey, hello. 78 sound. Well, I don't have something I have to talk about, in my mind. So if anybody's got any thoughts that's on somebody else's mind, I always pay attention to the chat room. NX is here too, NXVX. I will send you an email on the transcriptions I am working on. Start at the end. Oh, okay. All right. That's great. That's great. If you can tell me what tape number you're working on, then I can put it on my list. I don't know if you get email. I've been sending you emails. So that no two people are doing the same ones, but you're starting at the back was good because I don't think anybody has done that yet. But there's like 5 people right now that are doing this, transcribing the audio tapes, and so I'm going to proofread them all and add my comments and context sometimes. And then put them out for the general public, like I do with all the other materials I have. Put it on my blog. Post them all on my blog. Anybody can have them to do what they want with. So it's a great thing. It's a great thing to have those transcribed because then I'll be able to search through things without, because it's hard transcribing. I think some of the tapes, some of them aren't so bad. Some of them are, pretty easy. But some are very hard to hear, and there's noise. And I was told that one individual was using Audacity to filter out some of the extraneous sounds to be able to hear better and boost the volume. So that's a good tool for that, since it's free, public domain software. That's amazing that we actually have, so much software available. It's the advertising community that helps us with that, though, right? Anyway, so but it's changing anyway on that score. A lot of things are being charged for, and you have to hunt for things that aren't a charge, right? Anymore. They're all trials now, limited trials and watermarks. And features, new features, by the tremendous fee, all these features to pay for the maintenance of, right? To try to get something better, and it ends up breaking more things than it fixes sometimes. Anyway, that's part of it's all part of our current state of affairs electronically, anyway. But let's see here. There was something I wanted to talk about a little bit and point out, and I don't know if you can see it if I can put it on the screen. But the address is spaceweather.com. Just go to spaceweather.com, since everybody's got a computer usually. Well, maybe not. Maybe some don't. But there's a picture of an aurora that was created by humans using chemicals. So now they're just throwing chemicals in the air to make these things that people are seeing and they're calling in and saying they're UFOs because they look like that. They look like little like sperms, but big because they got this tail on them and this bulbous top, and they're blue and they're like real fluid looking, and there's some additional aura like to them as well, so that's even purple. So they're doing fireworks now with chemicals. I don't know that they explode or anything. But I don't know if they have to do this during the aurora borealis. But it's probably an indication of it may have something to do with the fact that well, I don't know. I shouldn't speculate really. It's kind of worthless. And I mean, but the facts are that we know that according to the science, the poles have changed, and that was talked about way back in the early '70s at the latest. The poles changing, and nobody knew what that meant. What do you mean the pole? I used to hear that 30 years ago and think, what does that mean? So it's going to be ice where right now there's the equator? Is that the way it's going to work? Or the planet's going to turn somehow so that what should be the same kind of thing, or I guess, according to the environment that's generated by the planets and all that. I mean, this planet may be 1,000,000 times more than anybody ever thought it was. There could very well be individuals living inside in different parts of the Earth. We haven't got to yet. We haven't really touched the surface of all the locations that could be inside this planet. I mean, that's where all the legends came from. That that's where was the underworld. It was actually under the earth world is what was originally talked about. And that might have come from a previous civilization that had a lot of underground facilities or living quarters that could have had a lot of high tech. To think that's not possible is not aware of how little we know, I think. I mean, it's one thing to wonder if it's possible. It's another thing to say that, definitively that's not possible. That separates. A lot of times people say that because they're rebelling against something else, I think. Like for instance, the individuals that become atheists and then are so attacked by the Christians or the religionists with their their certainty about everything, and so they basically take the form of view that anything that would talk about some kind of a higher strata or level or kingdom level of existence above human was automatically impossible. That everything had to have happened by something that didn't have any processes pre-programmed to do, like the genetic code does with all the cells of the body. even though the genes change. That was something that Tiendo taught in the 80s, that you could change your genes. So even on the cover of the book, The Transfiguration Diet. Let me see if I can get that in there. It's going to come out backwards. I guess I should put that part, I should make another screen with all these other pictures I have. I have so many pictures. So what that says on it, if it's not legible, is an extraordinary advanced turnaround concept regarding man and food, health, or disease. And the author is Little Green Inc.'s think tank. So they were already in tune with, they created the prophecies of the green, how green is such a dominant word now, even in politics. I mean, not dominant in what it represents, but dominant, well, except for the fertilizer and the stimulant of the growing of the green in thought and deed. Because that has to do with harvest. So it was Little Green Inc.'s think tank, and that was referring to the group, Tiendo's group that started as Human Individual Metamorphosis. And then it says on the bottom, which is the reason I picked up this book in the first place, it says your genetic characteristics can be reprogrammed. So I should get better with this changing screens to, get a little bit more professional here. Trying to, because, it's all kind of a value if it becomes an opportunity, in my mind, to talk about how T and O are connected to everything. And saying that, going back to those chemical things that humans are doing up in the Arctic, or I think that's where some of it's happening. Maybe Norway, actually, which we saw before. Maybe that's what was creating the Norway, what do you call it? The Norway spiral, I guess. I started calling it that. I don't know if I got that from somebody else or whatever, but it could have been a rocket that was designed to go in circles. They have GPS that goes a long distance from space. I just heard a report that they're halfway to the moon with an object that's being guided by GPS on the Earth. I don't know whether you have to be within the orbit of the satellites, or if it's possible that the satellites are putting out those signals in all directions. Maybe. I guess if they're all going around in circles, then there would be, right? The different parts of the Earth are getting affected by different sides of the satellite. I don't know if they spin or not, but anyway, I don't think they do. I was just thinking out loud about that. But so I was going to relate that to like showing the human signs and wonders is what comes to mind, and that was talked about in the record books, which I'm going to go to now, part of them, and see if you get it anytime soon. and go to Revelation chapter 13. For all you Bible toters that are toting your Bibles about, it's on Revelation chapter 13. I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise out of the sea. No, I shouldn't do the dramatic approach. Then I'd be like all the rest of them. Okay, get rid of that. Yuck, yuck. Just read it for the people that can't see it. And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. Now, the 10 crowns on the horns, I believe, are referring to individuals that once received a crown and so had a task for the next level using next level vehicles. But I would call them student model vehicles. So they still had the capacity to go through a reverse metamorphosis back into humanness. They're still, like Tino called the space aliens, human equivalents. So anyway, but I stood upon the sand of the sea. Sand was compared to the humans. In terms of being plentiful. And then the humans were also compared to the sea as water throughout the records. And so out of that, but it would also have a manifestation in the physicality, in the real world, in the geography. And so what we're seeing here is that well, it's a reference actually to the book of Daniel. I'm not going to go back to that, I think. There's potential there. Because there were 2 individuals seen that were standing on both sides of the river. And one was the Ancient of Days, which would have been Jehovah the Father. Well, during Daniel's time, it would have been Jehovah, existing one. That's what that means. Existing one. I am. I exist. I'm real. You're not the ones that are real. We're not real. I'm not real. Might as well accept that. And the reason I'm not real is because in the scheme of things, I exist for like a tiny, tiny speck of time. Because they exist without time. So they go by events that happen one after another that they put into motion or that are happening, and they work with to make the negatives into positives. It's continuing evolution, but it's not Darwinian evolution. But Tino talked about, they coined the terms, the evolutionary level above human, when they came public in 1975. And where they drive physical spacecrafts and they have physical bodies that they earn by converting a human body into to go through a metamorphosis of the biology that, together with a deposit of their mind, which is a soul, in that vehicle, grows that soul within that vehicle container. So the human body is a container for mind. Mind is equivalent to spirit. And so, like when the human dies, the mind that developed from the birth of that human till they left that's composed of three sources, being the mind from the genes, and the mind from the environment, growing up, parents, and everything they're taught that interfaces with the genes. And then there's the mind that's the higher mind from the next level, when we actually use our mind to take control of the vehicle. So every time we learn that there's something that's not good for the vehicle's health, and we say no to it, and we find other ways of having that satisfaction that might come from giving into that. Every time we do that, we're taking control of the vehicle. And to think of it that way is actually lends power to being able to do it better and better. Because we then recognize that the vehicle is like a child. And it wants what it wants, all its senses to be pleased all the time. And it also wants to feel. And it's not like feeling is wrong. It's none that's wrong. But on the next level, channels all their feelings towards their tasks. And then they graduate, and that's part of the becoming a student, is getting rid of all those human sensuality, but that doesn't get rid of emotion. That's what people misunderstand. Members of the next level, even in the student capacity, continue to have their emotions. They're happy. They can be sad. They can be upset, frustrated. They can be, all the emotions can be had. Even anger. They can have anger, but for different reasons, though, than what a human would have. A human would have all those emotions because of their relationship with other humans or themselves, and what their life has become, or what they did in life and what they didn't do in life. They could have anger about all that, and but with the next level, the anger is that there are individuals that believe they know better than the next level, don't even know what the next level is anymore, that can tell us what to do, how to grow, what's who to kill for, who to go to war against, what's justified, and all that, who to sell to, who to steal the oil from, who to put the people in jail because of, and for what reason, for what illegal element of the planet or concoction that people make to put them in jail for things like that. To actually foster the underground, to make crime out of something that doesn't have to become a criminal offense, because you can deal with things through education when you don't have those two forces of negative to fight against, of the self-righteous, even if they're unrelated to religion. Self-righteous, there are scientists that are self-righteous. They think they're right about it. That's what it means. It's rightness. It's and so their science becomes their rightness, even though the whole nature of science that many scientists know, especially the older ones, is that there's nothing incontrovertible about the determinations we come about using science, using our data and our evaluation of that data as the measure, and using humans as guinea pigs to make their profits. Like right now, Monsanto, which was actually sold to Bayer because Monsanto was getting so much bad press because of its cancer-causing chemicals that it's got everybody, all the farmers hooked on because they programmed them to believe they were going to get a better yield, but they didn't tell them of the ramifications of that better yield and how it was going to cause non-Hodgkin's lymphoma in people. And so now there's over 11,000 lawsuits being filed against Bayer, who took over Monsanto, so they could get rid of the name. And Monsanto was the same corporation that was that was paying and sabotaging the introduction of stevia from South America into the marketplace as a sugar alternate. So these are all predators. These are like predator drones on humanity. And the way to fight them is not by fire with fire. That's not the way the next level fights them. So there's no danger of there ever being violence justified to fight against them. I don't believe it. I mean, I'm not saying that somebody couldn't mount a campaign. Well, I'm not saying what anybody can do. We always have the option to do anything we want in the human kingdom. The next level wants us to have all the options. That's why you can tell whenever there's something that's going to be forced on us, you can tell obviously that it doesn't have the signature of being from the next level in any shape or form. Because the next level doesn't do that. But they provide the lower forces that will do that because they will justify it that they're doing it for the higher good. They're doing it for humanity. I can imagine that the space aliens want to save humanity because they need humanity in order to have the DNA, in order to keep on growing vehicles that they can take over and run the world because of. Because they can also travel in the astral world because they're not attached to those vehicles anymore when they lost the vehicle that they were attached to. So they went into the astral world and now they just use the drones they make, or whatever you want to call them, the zombies, which, it's not far different than somebody growing up in the human kingdom and as a child with a family with a very limited scope of reality and being programmed to live exactly the way they're taught to live by the parents or the caregivers. And so, unless the next level does something or circumstances change with others, which it does, because the next level mixes things up, and it's designed that way anyway, so that some of the young people end up seeing through it, and what do? They leave. So that helps the young actually break away from their human roots, their biological roots, to find something better. So even the negativity that's put on people and children can become a positive. And of course, you can't say that to somebody when they're going through that negativity. Maybe you can sometimes, but it takes time sometimes to get over the negative things that happen to us. And so that's the next level wouldn't go around like preaching this on the street corners or going to somebody's funeral and saying, you can make this into a positive if you just look to the Lord. See that would be pushing it on somebody when they weren't asking for it. That's another principle of the next level is that we need to ask for it continuously. They don't automatically assume that we want the next step for us that they can give to us because they don't really need us to respond. They don't need us at all to respond, not really need us. Uh, but they want us to respond because they know what's in store for those that get on their pathway, on their um, program to earn a boarding pass on a spacecraft to be a part of a crew. This is an employment opportunity. And I'm not the one that becomes the employer. I just know the employers because I was efficient to see that I was caught by the truth and went with it enough to where I knew exactly where it's all come from and that it was all true. And so I had to be reawoken to that, not that I ever disbelieved it, but I put it on hold a lot more than I do now, and a lot more than I appear to on these live streams because I'm kind of like on my best behavior now. It's like, I mean, not that I'm not doing anything shady on the side or anything, but or deceitful, but well, that's just a reflection that I know that just talking about it doesn't necessarily cut the mustard. And that was actually revealed to me more than ever by having individuals wanting to put their time into helping transcribe the tapes. I could have been working on that. I could have set aside half an hour a day to work on that. I'm a good typist. I actually did transcribe some of those tapes because we had that task to do that while we were in the group. And then things happened with going public, and it took a back seat for a lot of people, and that was probably natural to happen. And but some students kept up with it a little bit here and there, like Annie Odie and Jim Odie, and Annie Odie became Anil Odie, I think, Anlody. I was just reflecting on Annie Odie's change of name. So I kind of lost where I was, all the different ways, all the different pathways I just took in the last few minutes. So I'm going to go back to the prophecy that I started to talk about. But before I do that, I'm going to check the chat room. Hi, Cub Doggy. 1981. No sorries. It's all good. It's all good. It's I mean, it's but I appreciate the sentiment. Okay. I can do that. Sure, I'll do that. Okay, so let's see. I can't think of one right now, though. So Cub Doggy is saying in the chat room, I just seen a new documentary on Heaven's Gate coming out on the 15th. Oh, really? If you see a link to that, send it to me, please. on email or on Facebook or here, post it in a comment, because I'm expecting one to come out soon and two others to follow. Although maybe some of them are reconsidering. I think this information tends to blow some minds when they're exposed to more of the reality of it instead of just what you see on TV about it. I know it does. It does for me. So and I've my computer is accustomed to thinking about it for so long. It's but I do remember times where I had to do a double take on things because I just didn't. I talked about this before, but I might as well give an example. In 1986 or 7, Doe was examining whether we had something to do with the public again. And so he was examining different ways of interfacing with the public. And so he started a video company, and we went to, and some of the members of the crew, I didn't go to any, went to a couple of UFO conferences like in Arkansas and maybe Las Vegas. I'm not sure where all. But Lagodi did that with maybe June Odie and maybe Soon Odie. Anyway, so and then after that, he ended up, well, right at that same time, he bought the book UFO Crash at Aztec. And I don't know if it's in print anymore, and there were very few copies that were actually, it was a big, big, thick book, like kind of the size of my book. That's the way I remember it. And it was basically all about the crash that was alleged to happen in Aztec, New Mexico, where there were different numbers of bodies found. I've seen some say 18 bodies, and others say less than that. But there might have been more than one crash in that area, and that might account for having different stories with different amounts of bodies in them. I think that's what happened at the plains of San Augustine and Laredo, or the plains of San Augustine in another location in New Mexico that talked about as the Roswell crash. That there were also stories of another one. I think both of them had 4 individuals in them. But then, of course, that was as the propaganda started, then there's all kinds of stories flying now, that there weren't 4, there were none, and that was, just a figment of someone's imagination of the students that were camping and went walking through that area and saw the wreckage and saw bodies that reported that on some kind of a Boy Scout trip or something. And I wonder if that happened. I don't know. I might have to go back there. Anyway, I got off the track. Sorry. I was thinking of something else. Um, documentary. I was talking about the documentaries that are coming out. Uh, so things are going to be accelerating. More and more. Everything. All the negatives also. So it's not pleasant, but it's the way the garden grows. And so we need these. We need to have challenges in our lives, and for some, that challenge takes the shape of being in a natural disaster. But the next level, or having situations with other humans, of course, that are problematic, and it is considered to be a harvest time, and in the harvest, the stalks of the wheat need to be cut down. But it's not right for the wheat. I mean, the wheat long ago outgrew the behavior of thinking there was any reason to cut down to foster that cutting down of the stalks, and so all the killing of humans on humans is, and everybody that supports that's very bestial, the lower nature of humans. I mean, sexuality is the lower nature of humans also, but killing humans is worse than that, way far worse than that. I mean, everything can be an addiction. You can even be addicted to whatever somebody gets from killing another human. I'm told that it's a rush of adrenaline of some sort. Well, maybe that's just in the movies that they're saying things like that. But I don't doubt it. I wouldn't doubt it because, I remember once when I was driving in a car, I never actually saw anybody die in front of my mother was pretty close to death while she was in the nursing home for a while there. And my father-in-law he was on his deathbed when I saw him. So I shouldn't say that I haven't ever experienced being with somebody that was dying, but you don't have to be to actually recognize that there's a force with that. And the example I was going to bring up is when I was young, I was in a car and we were driving down a highway somewhere in the South, somewhere in the United States, and we came upon a scene that was blocked off, but you could pass. And in the middle of it, there was somebody laying on the ground, under a blanket, under a sheet. And I felt I could feel the individual spirit like screaming. I swear I could like almost hear that in my head. Because being in an accident probably is a lot of times that might be the last thing that happens. But for the spirit or the soul that's in that vehicle, it can be a shock because according to Doe, which I just recently read in one of the transcripts that was sent to me, the spirit has some recognition that it might not have got what it thought it was going to get when it left the vehicle. Let's see, I lost my train of thought again. Well, I'll go back to the chat room. Maybe it'll jaunt my memory, or I'll come around to it another time. To follow up from Cub Doggy, I keep saying doggy like I'm from the South. You're from Indiana, right? So I don't know if you probably don't have a drawl. To follow up from last night, Sawyer, we do have daylight savings time in Indiana. Oh, okay. Wasn't there was one, maybe it was Ohio. There was some place right in that area in the Ohio River Valley that didn't have daylight savings time at one time. Now maybe they changed it to have it. Yeah, that's what I was guessing. So it's not Indiana. Okay. Actually, we do it earlier in the year now than we used to do. Oh, really? Just wanted to clear that up. Oh, I didn't know people did it at different times of the year. Wow. Okay. So the documentary is coming out on the 15th of the month on a channel called Reels, Reelz. Oh, okay. That's probably a subscription channel, right? Maybe they'll have a trial and I can get it. Or if I have to pay a little bit, I'll pay for a little bit of it to see it. So Barrett Rebel is saying in the chat room, did Mimi ever get in touch with you? I don't remember anybody named Mimi getting in touch with me. So I don't think so. I don't know how you pronounce that, if it's my. I'm sorry, I butchered it then. Mime. I guess there's lots of different ways of saying it, right? Well, let's see here. Okay, I'm not going to even read the ones where you're. Well, I'll read them, but I'm not going to read them out loud when you're talking among yourselves. Oh, wait, that's for me too, I guess, maybe. Mimi is 103 and sleeps all day and stays up all night. Oh, really? Well, that's kind of what I do now. She's from oh, wait, 103 years old. Yes, German Jamaican. Very good genes. I'm German, but won't see 103, laughing out loud. So then Barrett says, laughing out loud, she's from the part of Jamaica that the Germans settled. And Barrett says, her dad was from the USA. I know that much. That's how she ties in with Heaven's Gate. Are you talking about the person that was the grandmother of or T's sister? Oh, I guess that's Mimi or Mai. I'm just going to say Mimi. Excuse me if that's wrong. Because then I was in touch with, no, not in touch with her. No, not that I'm aware of. If she's using that name, I guess I'm repeating myself. I know, but I just kind of like was thinking about it. If they were, because thinking I do get a lot of emails every day, so I could have missed it. And you're saying about Jamaica that, yeah, because Jamaica needed cheap labor in the 1830s after slaves were released, still under British rule. She was related to Bonnie. Oh, you're asking that question, I guess, Kabdaji, whether she's related to Bonnie Lou Nettles, and you're saying, Barrett's saying, yes, they were half sisters. Goes to show how much history I don't know. That was Kabdaji saying that, Doggy saying that. I shouldn't read that. I was trying to read the parts that seem to be relative to Tiendo, and that's so. Okay, so Barrett then says, "Aha, it's a new discovery." However, Ms. Nettles called her in the 1970s, and Mimi had a spiritual connection, etc. I don't know the whole story, but the ancestry DNA linked to her as kin. Mimi is a Jamaican grandmother. Wow. So was Mimi born in Jamaica? Did you say that already? Let me see. Let's see. German Jamaican. Okay, so she was originally German. All right. All right. So Dorothy Forrest. Oh, okay. All right. Well, I'll write that down in case she tries to communicate with me using that name. All right. Thank you for that follow up. I guess I'll go back to. I don't have to do a real long talk tonight because I guess as long as you all want to participate, I'll give it another hour or so. But I don't want to go to bed at 7 o'clock, so I can't seem to go to bed after I get kind of wired doing these. Wired at the same time as I get tired. And gosh, I gotta change the lighting so my face doesn't look like a little lit up. That's not intentional. I'm not trying to make myself look like I'm shining. But then again, it's the next level. If we're talking about the next level, then we're all shining more when we're thirsty for their mind. So where's that verse there? Whoa, that's slow. My computer's doing something weird. I got to close this application and reopen it. All right, back in business. Revelation 13:1. So the beast here is the word. I'll make sure you can see the whole thing. There's the word therion. So it's not the same as Zun. I did see in a translation of the Revelation that some people are actually calling the other word for that's been used as beast in the King James version that I'm looking at now. They're calling it living creature, and so that's a good thing because that's more accurate. That they are. Well, actually, no. Actually, no. That's not accurate. I take that back. They're not a creature. They're living beings, but they might be actually living creatures because I don't know for a fact that they have graduated into adult membership in the next level. So I'm going to go back and forth on that one for whatever that's worth. But and maybe it's not worth anything because most people aren't looking at these scriptures to the with every word trying to be seeming as important. But that's the way I witnessed Doe writing, and he taught us to write by his writing and making every word count, and not putting anything in extraneous. No, extraneous, I guess. So now I want to get. So the beast has these 7 heads and 10 horns. Well, I've already talked about this verse in the live stream, so some of this might be a repeat for some of you all. But I believe the 7 heads are the G7, and the 10 horns are the G10. And I believe the reason they're separate is because politics and banking are like 2 different kind of departments. The politicians, are in league with the bankers, naturally. But the financiers are really, pretty much the cabal that's running the show. That produce the politicians, with all the money that's given to them, one way or another, which was just legalized, right? That could happen with these CPACs and whatever they were, different groups, that can just buy the elections. So, which is kind of what happened with Trump by paying off all the hookers or whatever, or the individuals that, yeah, the hookers, whatever, the sex workers. I'm not down on them. They've got their own challenges in life. They can grow too. Everybody can grow. Doesn't matter what you're doing. But getting out of the things that are negative and of a lower nature is progression. That's the ultimate progression that we have, to get out of the human kingdom and to be less like an animal. And and that's why the idea is to not the idea, but one of the qualifications to be on a crew is to eliminate our sexuality so that we don't even want it anymore. And that's actually attainable. I mean, so that the vehicle doesn't even want it anymore. And now some vehicles don't even care about it, and that has something to do with, I think, what they overcome in the past. What even genetically, what that that strain of genetic leaves on the tree, on the genetic tree, on the human tree, what their experiences were. And that's why you have some that are attracted to the same gender. And wanting to change genders is a part of that as well. I think I don't know how to think about that exactly, because according to the way T and Do taught, because they didn't. I don't remember them ever addressing somebody that was a transgender as the way they thought about. I mean, Do said that somebody that's attracted to the same gender as them sexually is demonstrating that they have overcome their gender consciousness. The next level members don't have gender. So that's another thing that has to be gotten rid of, to not identify somebody by their gender. And so that's why, but the adversity that they experience because of that, and trying to live up to that, even though it's many times it's hormone driven. I'm not saying, but there's also like a mindset with individuals that have overcome different parts of the human kingdom, so that they're more evolved at the same time as in some ways, but not but there's a number of ways that we need to be more evolved to get into the next level, and that is sexually, so that we're not a sexual creature anymore. We don't have that addiction. And then, of course, gender consciousness and race consciousness. Not being colorblind. I heard T and Do use that term, colorblind, the first time I heard it. So that, which didn't refer to people seeing colors as different colors. It had to do with racial consciousness. I remember T and Do talking about that a little, because they were saying that anybody that's actually using race as a factor in a discussion, a factor of judgment or a factor of is actually has racial consciousness, and that in the human kingdom, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but to graduate into the next level, since they don't have race, they're one race. That's all they have, and they have all different color of the vehicles, like the dough. So and they don't well, I think I don't want to go any further than that with that subject. Go back into the chat room for a second here. She was born in 1915. You're talking about Barrett's talking about Mimi now again. Yeah, she was born in 1915 in Seaford, Germantown, Jamaica, and moved to Alabama in 1980. That's all very interesting. Well, I mean, I'm going to finish reading the chat room. Let's see. I thought she said she did and was trying to arrange a call with you. Okay. No, I don't know anybody that's tried to arrange a call with me. But that was only like a day or two that I think you brought that up, right? So maybe it's still going to happen. I have a call with somebody else tomorrow, but it's not related to. It's a UFO website, UFO something website. They have a podcast, so I don't know if I'll probably I'll do a Skype with them, I think, or maybe just a phone call. All right, so Barrett is saying tomorrow's church day. I better get some sleep. You all have a good night. Well, good night, Barrett. So let's see, back to Revelation 13. There it goes with that again. All right, that's weird. My computer might be going balloons here. There might be a virus or something because it's an old application, so it may not run perfectly on Windows 10. So anyway, the Bible software that you're seeing on the screen there. But anyway, so on the horns there are 10 crowns, and so crown is I believe crown represents receiving a next level vehicle, even if it's a student model next level vehicle, because all the ones that were talked about as the 24 had crowns before they came, and they threw them down. I think it's in Revelation 5 that it talks about that. So I'm going to go there. Since I want to do a thorough job here instead of skimming over it. Oh, there's that word creature again. Thing founded or created thing. Thing founded. It's both everything founded which is in heaven. I was reading 5:13. That's not the verse I was talking about. Okay, then, right, it says, Revelation 5:14, and the four beasts said, Amen. And the 24 elders fell down and worshipped him that liveth forever and ever. You know what? I might not have went to the right place with those. Oh, yeah, here it is. Here it is. I'm not going to read it all, but what he sees when John is actually seeing something in heaven, uh, and behold, the door was opened in heaven, and the first voice which I heard was, as it were, a trumpet talking with me, which said, "Come up hither, and I will show thee things which must be hereafter." And immediately I was in spirit, and behold, a throne was set in heaven, and one sat on the throne. So this is something that's an object that's above the earth, and so I think that's a spacecraft. And he that sat on, in other words, the pilot of it, the crew leader, the primary, the only member that was the captain of it, or the admiral, whatever it was, was to look like jasper and sardine stone, and there was a rainbow around the throne. Now, the rainbow represents the covenant. In other words, that's the requirements to become a member of the next level. Is the covenant, and that's established right from the beginning of the experiment. The first trimester of the experiment. So it's not on the time zone of the human kingdom. It's not the beginning of the human kingdom on Earth or this civilization, but and it's compared to an emerald. And an emerald is generally green, I think. I just realized that. Huh. I just realized that. I hadn't noticed that before. I gotta go back and do something with that. So I'm gonna take it and copy it out here. So and then it comes to Revelation 4:4. And round about the throne were 24 seats. And upon the seats I saw 24 elders sitting, clothed in white raiment. Now, if they have white raiment, that means that's the next level vehicle. Because Tiendo talked about as clothing, like suits. They're living suits. Like a vehicle is a suit in that same regard when we take it over. And they had on their heads crowns of gold. Okay, so a crown of gold. Oh, yeah, that's right. That's a different kind of crown. Right, because so they're getting the next level crown, where the crowns that are on the 10 horns in Revelation 13:1, that's a diadem. That's right. I forgot to look up the word crown. This is Stephanos, which is a king's crown. So these individuals are kings because they're compared to the human kingdom. Each of them is a king, even over the human kings, because they outgrew enough of the human kingdom to where they were awarded membership in the next level. Anyway, so they have the crown on their head. So that's the head is them, is their mind, their the next level mind that they becoming an individual for the first time. And then it says in Revelation 4:5, and out of the throne proceeding lightning and thundering and voices, and there were 7 lamps of fire burning before the throne, which are the 7 spirits of God. Well, I'm not going to go through all the interpretation of that. I want to get through. And before the throne there was a sea of glass like unto crystal. And in the midst of the throne and round about the throne were 4 beasts full of eyes before and behind. Well, part of that is a description of the New Jerusalem. So they're describing that spacecraft. And this is where they're using the word beast when it's zun, living being, okay? Which then relates to Daniel's the counterparts to the which are 3. There's 3 counterparts. Saying the first beast was like a lion, the second beast like a calf, and the third beast the face of a man, and the fourth beast was like a flying eagle. Well, eagle is often depicted as, but since these aren't the beasts, these aren't these are living beings that I guess came up through the characteristics of mammal, human, feline, and bird. They came into the next level through those strains, I guess, of some sort, or the characteristics of them, and not necessarily through physical bodies that had those shapes, but maybe it's possible. Yeah, you can. I mean, we see all the movies about, with animals talking and everything, but I mean, what makes it impossible that an animal could look like an animal, like in the Star Wars movie, Chewbacca, and he could have as much intelligence as humans do, he or she, or in between the pronouns. Well, the next level would be all the pronouns together, which they just use the word he, because otherwise you get because that's the way they designed it to happen in that direction with the gender. But equality was considered necessary, and that's why they stimulated the suffrage movement in the mid 1800s among women, which I'm not saying didn't start before that, but that's where it first came to the fore enough to be considered to be a movement, a political movement. Let's see. So I'm not getting to that spot. Okay. So then it says in Revelation 4:10, the 24 elders fall down before him that sat on the throne and worship him that liveth forever and ever, and cast their crowns before the throne. Now, so that means that 28 individuals, oh no, I'm getting mixed up, I'm sorry. Doesn't matter. I wouldn't throw enough through this. The crowns are, I established what the crowns were, because otherwise I could just go, keep on going with, there's another scripture that I was looking for that talked about throwing their crowns down, but see, this is giving us two examples of the 4 and 20 elders fall down before him that sat on the throne. So I don't know when that happened exactly. That could have been saying will fall down, or that they fell down before, and that's more likely, because I think this is saying that they were the same souls that were with Jesus before and laid down their bodies, falling down. In other words, they died. They were killed by humans because they were telling the truth. That's falling down, like falling down on your sword. That's where that came from. And that's what actually happens. You actually fall down literally. But then when it says that they cast their crowns before the throne, the crowns, again, I think represent the next level vehicles that they had at the time, the physical vehicles they had at the time. Because in between those two events, the 4 and 20 fell down before him, and that sat on the throne. And then it says, and, I don't see that word is meant to be there, because sometimes they put an and in there and it's not. Usually they put it in italics in the software, but you can't count on it. But so it's and also, even, indeed, or but. So, but this, when there's space between thoughts, it can be a long time in between those thoughts that could be depicted. And there's no amount of time that we can put on it unless they give us some indication of the time period that's happening within. And they do that in other forms of other places in these records. By worship in this word, in Revelation 4:10, according to Doe, the word worship really meant work for. So this was saying that after they had fell down, so they ended their task with him 2,000 years ago, then he worked for them. He worked for him that liveth forever and ever, for his older member, and him and his older member. And then after that, they cast their crowns before the throne, saying, Thou art worthy, O Lord, to receive glory and honor and power, for thou hast created all things for thy pleasure. They are and were created. And pleasure actually is purpose. Purpose, not pleasure like, it's jollies. But it is joyful for them to have new members in the group, or in their family. They have big celebration for every new member. That's what Tiendo said, anyway. I read that last verse. I could tell how religious it sounded. I don't like that, but because each of these words means something that's not religious. Like glory usually means like a brilliance or a recognition, the brightness and abundance, wealth, a treasure, honor. Also can be opinion, judgment. So it's like saying you are worthy, member of the next level, older member, to receive well, I guess glory would be splendor, brightness, uh, uh, new children. In other words, that's what that kind of means, because they don't care about honor and dignity and praise. The next level of members, they don't go around praising each other. They don't do that at all. They they're but they look at each other and they without even having a thought about it transmit uh, um, their affection for somebody, or they do it with their mind. And Tiendo started teaching us that in the 1980s when we looked at one another, fellow students. Uh, we could look at somebody as like if we passed them in the hall with a pleasant countenance, and we might smile a little bit, like to greet somebody, but it certainly wouldn't be like a big like oh, I haven't seen you kind of vibration. I mean, even though that's fine for the human kingdom, uh, they're more refined, and that isn't but humans, we all have human things we do, and there's nothing wrong with those things. But like I said, because it's not all like it's not like a sterile environment. People are feeling. I've certainly got great emotion from uh, recognizing that some were falling in love with Tian Do. That's it touches me, and I can learn a lot from them, legitimately, because they're many times they're just being like well, I can't judge whether this is the first time that they had a relationship with the older members uh, after they left, or even while they were here, but for whatever reason are now having a relationship with their older members while still here in the human vehicle after they left. I'm not the judge of who is where. I just see their mind, wanting to be of service to the next level, and that's inspiring, because I know that I could have been more of service all along, but I got into my different ruts. I'm not saying that I haven't been doing a lot, but the next level, that's why I said they were jealous God, not because they're jealous, but because like they want you to be something else, or they want you to only give them attention. They don't. It's because we're not recognizing the difference. But we're not expected to recognize that difference if we haven't been taught that, the difference between loving a human and loving an older member. And I don't think I'm the best example of loving an older member. I was talking about in a live stream last night. I thought Junodi was a real good example of that. So I'm not going to go past that, but our love for our older member is directly in proportion for the way that we want to work for that older member. The same thing in the world in a lot of ways, right? I mean, it's when you have an employer that you really enjoy working for, um, you don't want to do things your way unless the employer says, how would you do it? Or asks you for, opinions. For you to walk up to your employer and say, well, you can change the country, change it this way and this way, it would be better. You may be right, but that wouldn't be very respectful if you're their employee, unless they were asking in some way. So older members do that too with the younger members. They ask them what they think. Doe did some of that, and it's genuine. He's not asking us that as a setup, but it does surface whether a student has some more lessons to learn in that department of trusting our own mind, or thinking a lot about ourselves, or valuing our opinion, or and not that there's anything wrong with any of those things, but in the next level classroom, valuing our opinion above the older member's opinion is just not accurate, because it's demonstrating that we don't see the gap. We don't recognize how different they are than us. Now people aren't going to experience that with me because I'm equal to everybody else. But with the older members, I was like more in awe of Doe early on, NT. And I demonstrated then losing some of that awe later, and I got lessons for it. And like the time that Doe said that I was competing with him when he was asking the opinion of a handful of students. And I didn't recognize that I was competing with him because I just came up with some ideas, or one idea. And but looking back on it, I can see that the higher natural tendency of a student with their older member, when their older member asks them for that, would be to not pull on their human mind in order to come up with a suggestion, but to pull on the mind that was given to them. So in other words, the examples that they have of things that T and Doe had done that they witnessed and had said that they witnessed, those would be the characteristics to try to pull up in order to express something to our older members related to what they were asking about. And so the older members are sensitive to that because their job is to help us overcome those characteristics. So because in the next level, if you haven't learned to treat your neighbor as you want to be treated, well, I can tie it into that, but if we over trust our own opinion about things by stating it more emphatically, or you know um, we're not working with crew-mindedness. That's what I was reaching for. We're not working with crew-mindedness, and the next level is crew-minded. Uh, that's why the demonstration of the hive mentality was a good one for the next level, though, where the humans think they're individuals more than the Borg, even though the Borg were made to look robotic and mindless, But but in the next level, they would have been be obviously more intelligent, more compassionate, more aware, more keen, more thoughtful, more thorough, more flexible. Those are characteristics of members of the next level, according to T and Do. I don't know if I completed a thought there. I thought I might have, but if not, I'll try to do it again sometime, and maybe I'll get a better, or someone else might have a better way of saying it. I might be making more of it than is necessary in my descriptions sometimes. So casting the crowns down in Revelation 4:10 comes from the word balo, cast, put, thrust, cast out, lay, lie. The other words that it's used for throughout the Greek records. To throw or let go of a thing. Notice you got that idea of thrusting and throwing, casting. To scatter. So when they intentionally crashed some spacecrafts, that was throwing down their crown. That was throwing down that vehicle that they had, that physical vehicle that they had, so that humans could have the evidence that there were people that came from outer space that were not human, came from someplace other than the Earth that they'd never seen before. I know some people believe that they came from the inner Earth, and I could say that that's true also, because T and Do said that, Do said that he felt like the Luciferians staged some spacecraft crashes after or exchanged with the government some spacecrafts, and that might have happened. That was reported to happen at Holloman Air Force Base in New Mexico, near Albuquerque. So what I think this was depicting in Revelation 4 was what Tiendo called the briefing. Now, they didn't talk about, the Bible hardly ever, maybe maybe a tiny amount. But go back to the chat room for a second here. Well, I see we're being visited by the death by forest person again, so I'm not going to bother reading that chat room. It doesn't deserve to be read again. And Cub Doggy is saying, gender seems to be an issue here lately because they want to give the option on driver's license to mark your sex with neither male or female. I forgot the proper term they use. People are mad about it. In other words, they're going to make everybody buy a new license. Is that? I mean, that already happens in some states every 2 years, and some in Vermont it's every 2 years. I don't know why why is that a problem? I guess I'm wondering. People misunderstand gender when they think about it biologically and not socially. Yeah, I can see what you're saying there, I think. So I don't know why I know Vermont, I think, is adding it, the neutral gender or whatever. I don't know what they're calling it. Neither male nor female. See, to me, I wouldn't want to be on my driver's license. Wouldn't want to be identified as not male or female, because there's a certain amount of people that hate people that are homosexual. They think it's a sin and you're condemned to die if you don't overcome it. And they don't even give you the chance. Some of them do. Some of them are, recognizing that they're no better or worse. I'm not saying that's a matter of better or worse, but I'm in terms of the next level, it's the same. Heterosexual and homosexual, no difference. And bisexual, no difference to the next level because they have no sexuality. So that's why I say better or worse. But from the perspective of the humans, it's worse to be a homosexual because everybody else, most of the people, the majority that we know about are heterosexual. Like I said, that we know about because, how many people suppressed it their whole life for one reason or another, that they were, and for some people it didn't make any difference, and they felt the same, and maybe those would be the people that would be bi, but they didn't act on it because it was so against the rules. That's another form of the same thing. If you were brought up in like a Christian household where that was considered to be evil behavior, then even though Jesus didn't talk about it and he brought the updates. So if we're not living by what he taught, then we have no place condemning it. Condemn the things that he taught to condemn, like having anger with your brother for that without a reason. Or not following the you should not kill law, or not stealing. All those commandments and that were delivered as a basis for going forward as being prospective candidates to graduate into the next level where they don't steal. And there's no deceit in the next level. And deceit was one of the things in those 10 commandments, right? Thou shalt not bear false witness against your neighbor. I think was one of them. And so that was a form of, that would be deceitful. And they were teaching the truth right from the beginning, even during the toddler level classroom. So people that are tuned into, the Old Testament as their ways of rules are still living with a toddler mentality. And it might not even be an accurate toddler mentality. It might be a distorted form, because a lot of the Jews ended up, they broke up. The kingdom of Israel broke up to where one tribe broke off. It was, and then another one, Benjamin, then broke off after, oh gosh, I'm getting tired. Judah. Judah broke off, and then Benjamin broke off. And then they were all scattered by all around the world. Or all around the third part of the world. The 3 parts of the world, I guess. Well, maybe not. Maybe only 2 parts of the world. Looking at the 4 quadrants as well, I'm not going to go there, because I was going to get into something that I'm not really describing right in this circumstance. So I don't want to start trying to explain myself in that regard to make any sense out of what I was just thinking. So bear with me, please. I go through these times. So back into the chat room. Well, that's where we get to that last person that, see, DJ Tuconic is here. Hi. And for talking about T and Do, it's very appreciated. Well, I'm really glad to hear you say that, because that means, it's, the only way you would say that is because you love the same mind from T and Do. All right, folks. I thinking about turning in early tonight. Let's see. Maybe I didn't. You know what? I didn't get to the Revelation 13 part that I wanted to. So if you've still got some, well, of course you can leave any time. I know, but if you're willing to stay on a little bit longer, I'll go through. I'll skip down to what I wanted to talk about, which isn't like a big deal. It's not like something monumental. And I've probably talked about it before, but it gets down to where so at some point, so Revelation 13:4 is the dragon is giving power to the beast. Okay, so the beast has already been described as being the New World Order, the G7, G10, and everybody that's in bed with them. Okay, and so that might be everybody that believes in the political system and lives by it, and believes in everything the scientists say that are in academia, and doesn't look at anything alternative to those forms of thinking. Thinks that it's a terrible world, and so we've got to be the police. The United States has to be the police force to keep the terrorists at bay, and to do that, we need to have drones that go and shoot up families, and consider the civilians that die collateral damage. And all that thinking, all the quest for power, the desire to think that they can save the earth from themselves, by changing how many bottles how many plastic bottles we use. And so to give everybody that hope to stop the human kingdom from dying, so that our children will have a life. Well, that's all fantasy thinking. It's all fantasy thinking because the next level is going to recycle when they're ready to. And they designed it to change like this now, to have this pressure put on us so that we can wake up more to the reality that this planet was created for a reason, and you don't get the benefit of that reason just by believing in something, believing in a savior, and then thinking that you were going to be like the butterfly after you died. No, the work has to be done while we're in a vehicle, while we're living, and the work is to follow everything that was taught, not just just being good to our neighbor when our neighbor is good to us. It's being good to all neighbors. Humanitarianism is what Doe said is the behavior that we need to have when when the older member is not present with us. But that doesn't mean that our mind can't be fully on the next level. So that's only the behavior among us, day to day that we're talking about. It's not talking about the work we're doing for the next level, because the next level doesn't need humanitarians, I don't think, at this time, because they're wrapping up the garden. And there's plenty of people that's their station in growth, where that's the priority for them, potentially, or it's just an option of a priority, and maybe they'll be saved to a different grade in school than those that are trying to get rid of separating from their humanness. In whatever degrees they're doing it. However, which they've already done probably a large part of, which doesn't necessarily mean physical separation from people unless they're holding us back. And that's the same with anybody that's experiencing a problem with other humans. We can either fight them, to have our place, to take our stand, or we can go with the flow and leave that environment, separate from it, so that we're not subject to it. And then we can get out of that's how, individual in the chat room talked about conquering an addiction. And the way that was done, I'm sure had to do with, saying no and not surrounding himself with people that were participating in that behavior, and changing their patterns as well, because you could do that. You could fall into those patterns even by yourself. You don't have to be with anybody else. You could be a closet addict to all kinds of things. And that's what the internet gives us a lot of as well, opportunity for. So anyway, back into Revelation 13:5, and it was given to him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and power was given unto him to continue 40 and 2 months. Now, this mouth, I believe, is the media. And I think that's media propaganda. And that's media on all sides of the fence, both sides of the fence in the human kingdom. It's not just conservatives or liberals, or those differences really fall away pretty easily if we didn't have the internet to keep them alive as divisions among people. Not that there are divisions among people. I know that. So maybe but it's meant to be this way, to where the propaganda machines are just alive and well and churning it out all day long, every day. Trying to convince people of who's got the better programs, the better views, the better projects, the better ways of thinking, the more righteous. Because the individuals that are in those seats of power they come to think that they're in a position because these things need to be done, these decisions need to be made, and that they have the power to do it, and they do a lot of times, right? Like the Supreme Court judges and stuff. What they say, appears to be a law of the land, right, for people. And sometimes they can seem like they're coming up with a fair decision, because the Luciferian, the space aliens, they want order in their kingdom, in their human kingdom, their human equivalents. So this mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, in other words, saying that it's up to us to save the earth. See, that's a complete distortion of the reality, because how can the waste save life? Or let's see, how can I put that better? Oh yeah, how can the weeds save the fruit? How about that analogy? How can the weeds save the fruit? Okay, so that's what people say. They want to save the human kingdom, right, from killing itself. And to do that, right, because they're killing themselves. We're killing ourselves by carbon pollution, okay, according to them. And so we've got to save ourselves from ourselves, right? Because we all have a carbon footprint. It's a perfect kind of illusion to generate. That I have no doubt that one of those space alien souls stimulated, which the next level knew they would. But what the next level doesn't know is how many people were going to fall for it or not. But so when they put this, excuse me. Well, maybe I shouldn't go there at this point. Because I mean, one scripture to the next is just filled with perspectives of what's happening right now. But I was talking about before in Revelation 13. I was talking about the way that the beast is actually the one generating uh, the wonders and the miracles and wonders, and you can look at that as the miracles and wonders, great wonders, uh, as the internet. In a sense, is a great wonder, right? I mean, now we're used to it because we've had it, to where you can be talking to somebody on a screen that's on another part of the world, and just like it's almost real time, even real time, you know, uh, that would have been considered a miracle 100 years ago. That's not that long ago, and people would have, maybe, attacked you if you suggested that was going to be the case because they would have thought you were being a prognosticator of something that's false. That's not possible. I mean, there were going to be a certain amount of people that were going to act that way. And make fire come down from heaven onto the earth in the sight of men. Uh, well, that's heaven in that context is maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men. They're saying that the beast that was healed of the deadly wound, which I think was the 9/11 event, makes fire come down from heaven. I'm going to have to look at that again another time because I'm not sure I got that exactly right. Let's see. The word fire, maketh was commit, work, show, bear, keep. Perform, fulfill, produce. Fire is usually just pour. Yeah, pour. So it's actually fire or fiery. And heaven is the elevated areas, so that can be talking about heaven on the earth. Okay, so the fire is coming down on the earth in the sight of men. I wonder what that means. Enopian means before men. In other words, men in front of, occupied the place, but also a turn of the eyes, so that they're able to see it, this fire. Oh, that's right, because that's the dragon that brings the fire down on the Earth. That's the space aliens that are bringing their um, it may actually have a manifestation in the physical to where there's going to be individuals, shooting lasers down to Earth. We just saw there was just a report of that happening. That the United States did a test with shooting something down with a laser, and Japan just shot something down with a laser, and India, I think I might have mixed up with some of this, just bombed a planet or an asteroid or something, and the United States did that a long time ago, where they shot a comet, and England shot a comet as well. Um, and we've all been able to witness this. And part of what they're doing that for is to see if they can move these objects and to see what they're made out of, in order to figure out maybe how much nuclear energy they need to figure out how to make in order to, to try to steer a asteroid away. They may think that the space aliens have the ability to rain asteroids down on humans on the Earth, instead of thinking that it's the next level that's doing that. They're thinking the next level are another space race to join the other. They say like hundreds of space races that there are. I don't know if there's that many different species on the planet. You never can tell how much, how many misinformation things that have been sewn into the. I don't. It doesn't make well. I mean, Doe did say that the next level drew individuals from different planets that needed to go through this lesson step so that they wouldn't become like the Luciferians became, because they were like student members that got into the next level, but that's where the next level learned. And so what T said is that they raised the bar on getting into the next level because of that, because of what the ones called the space aliens, the Luciferian group, chose to do. That went against their experiment, and so therefore they don't want that interference. And so they put a stop to it, but then took advantage of it by subjecting their own to that influence. And that would give us the choice. It's so perfect. And it's a perfection that keeps on going. So I'm going to go back to the chat room. I talked about the thing that I wanted to, make into a complete subject, I guess, for my description. And so with that, I'm going to say goodnight to you all. It's been a pleasure to have the opportunity to talk about Tiendo again, and to have the presence of individuals that also like to hear about Tiendo and have their own relationships forming with Tiendo. Good night.